Welcome, gentle listener, to another softly told tale from the quiet corners of forgotten history. Tonight, we drift not into the chambers of kings or the halls of war, but into the dusty roads and quiet stables of Europe in the 1600s, an era not defined by sword or scandal, but by parchment, patience, and the thundering of distant hooves. Our subject is the humble postal system. Yes, letters, carried slowly across mountain passes, sealed with wax, counted by clerks, read by candlelight, the great machinery of Europe's first communication networks, moving ever forward at the speed of a galloping horse, or sometimes only a walking one. There will be no urgency here, only careful dispatches weighed and logged, only messengers in cloaks and boots, only quiet inns and routes that stretch from Venice to Vienna, Paris to Prague. Settle in. Let us travel together, one envelope at a time. Let us begin with silence. It is the year 1602, and in most of Europe, there is no public postal service as we would know it. There are no street corner mailboxes, no stamps, no daily deliveries. If you, a humble scholar in Florence, wish to write to your cousin in Brussels, there is no central office to take your letter. Instead, you must arrange a courier yourself. You might hire a rider, a local tradesman with a horse and a satchel, who will deliver your letter for a price. Or you might entrust it to a merchant caravan, where your message will be tucked among barrels of wine and bolts of wool. The journey may take weeks. If storms roll over the Alps, months. This, you see, is a fragmented world of communication. Each city-state and kingdom has its own rules, its own system, its own permissions and tolls. Crossing borders is not just a matter of geography. It is an act of negotiation. Some letters are carried by monastic messengers, sworn to secrecy and devotion. Others by university scholars, exchanging Latin commentaries across nations. And for the wealthiest, there are private couriers, well-dressed riders with crested seals, dashing through cities with documents from one noble house to another. But it is not enough. The continent is changing. Trade is expanding. Diplomacy stretches farther. And so, the great need begins to emerge. A shared, consistent, organized system of communication. Something reliable, something official, something new. And slowly, the postal system, as we would come to know it, begins to take shape. It is not quick. It is not easy, but it begins. As the 17th century unfolds, with its powdered wigs and ticking clocks, a name begins to echo softly through the cobbled courts and merchant houses of Europe: Thurn and Taxis. It is not the name of a battlefield, nor a king, nor a scholar. It is the name of a family who would, for more than 2 centuries, own and operate one of the most important communication systems in the Western world. Their story begins earlier in the days of the Holy Roman Empire. The family's ancestors were Italian, from Bergamo, and went by the name Tasso. Their gift, organization, logistics, the ability to turn chaos into schedules. They began by carrying letters for the emperor, linking distant corners of the realm with predictable reliability. But by the early 1600s, under the Latinized name Thurn und Taxis, the family held an imperial postal monopoly sanctioned by the emperor himself. They were responsible for connecting the heart of Europe from Vienna to Brussels, from Madrid to Innsbruck with regular service. Imagine it now. Across the continent, Thurn and Taxis establish a chain of relay stations. These are not just outposts, they are small ecosystems of communication. At each station, a mounted courier arrives, wind-bitten and covered in dust. His horse is lathered with sweat. He dismounts and hands the mailbag to a fresh rider, already waiting with a new horse. The change takes minutes, and then the letters are off again, galloping forward, like a fire passed hand to hand. The system becomes legendary for its speed, though by modern standards it is still slow. A letter from Brussels to Vienna might take 4 or 5 days. Weather, war, and wandering livestock can delay it, but by 17th century standards, it is a marvel. Mail in this time is a solemn object. Each letter is written by hand, folded carefully. Envelopes, you see, are not yet in fashion, and sealed with wax, stamped with the sender's crest. Some are tied with string. Others include elaborate closures or hidden folds to deter tampering. Paper is expensive, so is ink. A letter may be written in a tight, looping script, words packed into margins, like whispered thoughts pressed into corners. When posted, the letter is weighed. Pricing depends on distance and mass. Couriers keep careful ledgers, noting senders, destinations, and delivery confirmations. And all this, mind you, is private enterprise. The Thurn and Taxis family is not just running a mail service. They are running a transnational communications empire. And yet, most people never use it, because this post is not for the common man. It is for nobles, bankers, ambassadors, and universities. It is for the ruling class. The peasant with a cousin in another village must still rely on word of mouth, or send their message in the hands of a traveling friar. But change is coming, slowly, horse by horse, seal by seal. The 17th century postal courier was not a figure of drama or fame, but to the whispering rhythm of Europe's letters, he was essential, the heartbeat between senders and receivers. To understand the postal system, one must understand the quiet life of the man in the saddle. He wears no armor, no sword, unless the route is especially treacherous. More often, he is wrapped in a long woolen coat, leather gloves, and a cloak to shield him from the rain. His boots are heavy, worn from travel, spattered with mud. Slung across his back is the mail satchel. It is waxed to resist water. Inside are letters tied with ribbon or string, some in wooden cases, others in heavy leather wraps. Each bears a seal, to be broken only by the intended recipient. And inside the courier's vest, close to his chest, is his route pass, stamped with the symbol of Thurn and Taxis, or whatever city or prince has hired him. His days begin before dawn. He rides from one relay station to the next, a dusty stone inn or a house at a crossroads, where a fresh horse awaits. If no horse is ready, he waits. If food is available, he eats sparingly, dried meat, cheese, black bread. At each stop, he hands off any local-bound letters and picks up new ones. Everything is recorded in a ledger kept by the station master. There is no tolerance for loss or delay. The mail is sacred. It carries the affairs of states, of bankers, of scholars. The road is not always kind. There are bandits, especially in border regions and forests. A courier may be robbed not for coin, but for the valuable information he carries. There are rivers swollen by rain with no bridges for miles. There is war, small regional skirmishes between duchies or cities, which can close entire routes without warning. But the courier persists, not because he is celebrated, but because the work must be done. At night, he sleeps at an inn if he can afford it, otherwise in a stable or under the stars. His pillow is his satchel. His lullaby is the soft rustle of paper. He rises with the sun. Again, There is no applause at the end of the journey. When the courier arrives in a city, Paris, Nuremberg, Antwerp, he heads directly to the central post house. There, clerks receive the letters, log them, and sort them for hand delivery. Most will go by foot, through crowded market streets, into the hands of well-dressed secretaries and scholars. The courier hands over his logbook, receives his small pay, and either rests or begins the return trip. His presence is unnoticed, but the letters, they move empires. There is no applause at the end of the journey. When the courier arrives in a city, Paris, Nuremberg, Antwerp, he heads directly to the central post house. There, clerks receive the letters, log them, and sort them for hand delivery. Most will go by foot, through crowded market streets, into the hands of well-dressed secretaries and scholars. The courier hands over his logbook, receives his small pay, and either rests or begins the return trip. His presence is unnoticed, but the letters, they move empires. At first, letters are sent by the few who can afford them. A merchant in Lyon sends word of silk shipments to his contact in Milan. A diplomat in Prague communicates coded reports back to Vienna. A scholar in Leiden requests commentary from a fellow academic in Padua. Their letters are stamped, sealed, and weighed, then carried by the Thurn and taxi system or local postal networks permitted by royal decree. For the average townsman or farmer, however, the post is not only unfamiliar, it is practically invisible. There is no mailman to knock on a cottage door. There is no postbox on a village street. To send a letter, one must visit a central post station, pay the fee, often a full day's wages or more, and trust that the courier will carry it faithfully through storm and border and bureaucracy. But voices begin to rise, not loudly, not rebelliously, just steadily. Merchants need regular communication. Cities crave regulation. And the growing middle class, not noble, not poor, begins to ask, why should letters be only for lords? In bustling trade cities like Amsterdam and London, local governments begin to institute postal reforms. Private couriers, once operating in a chaotic and informal way, are now registered. Rates are posted publicly. Deadlines, though still generous, are promised. A letter might now travel from Bruges to Antwerp in a single day, if the weather holds. London begins to experiment with the penny post, a small charge to deliver letters anywhere in the city. And while such ideas will take firmer hold in the next century, their roots are planted here, in the 1600s, among busy docks and merchant guilds. Still, the act of writing a letter is not yet casual. Paper is precious. Ink is mixed by hand. Seals are personal. To write a letter is to perform an act of formality. You choose your words carefully. You select your paper with intention. You heat the wax. You press your ring into the surface. The message may be short, but the act is ceremonial. It is a conversation at a distance, wrapped in ritual. The postal system, growing slowly from noble privilege to civic service, begins to take on a new role, not just a tool of governance or trade, but of connection, of love, of news, of everyday life. It is still slow, it is still expensive, but it is no longer only for the powerful. And in the quiet inns and dim-lit post houses, new hands begin to pass sealed letters forward, from friend to friend, from father to daughter, from one corner of Europe to another. Inside a small wooden building at the edge of a bustling 17th century city square, candlelight flickers against high shelves and bundles of parchment. A bell chimes softly as the heavy door swings open. Boots scuff against rush-covered floors. And there, seated behind a desk cluttered with ledgers, seals, and keys, is the postmaster. Not a dramatic figure, not a wealthy one, but a keeper of movement, a gatekeeper of information. If the courier is the blood that moves the postmaster is the heart, receiving, stamping, logging, and pumping each message into its proper route. The postmaster's most valuable tool is not a horse, or a seal, or even a map. It is his ledger, a large book bound in leather, often iron-clasped. It records each letter that enters and leaves his station. The entries are written in a practiced hand. Name of sender, name of recipient, date of posting, weight and seal description, fee paid, courier assigned. Each line a quiet record of a moment in someone's life. Beyond his window, a vast invisible web stretches across the continent. A network of postal routes that connect villages, towns, cities, and courts. There are major arteries, where riders gallop from capitals, Brussels to Madrid, Vienna to Paris, Prague to Rome. And then there are local veins, winding through valleys and along riverbanks. From one hamlet to another over wooden bridges, through toll gates, and sometimes across frozen streams. The entire system is held together by coordination, schedules maintained not by clocks but by habit, memory, and handwritten instructions. One postmaster in Cologne might coordinate with another in Munich through weekly dispatches. If war breaks a route, letters are rerouted. If a station burns, messengers are redirected. And all of this is done without telephones, without telegrams. Only quill, parchment, and the memory of the land. He logs missives from ambassadors, notices from trade guilds, and occasionally, a clumsily folded note sent from a wife to a husband, posted through a traveling cousin. Errors are rare. Tampering is forbidden. The postmaster is not a public figure, but he holds a quiet power, knowledge of who writes to whom and when. In many cities, the postmaster's chamber becomes a quiet repository of secrets. Unclaimed letters are kept in drawers, often for weeks. Some are never picked up. Occasionally, a letter arrives with no return name, only a seal. The postmaster recognizes it anyway. A lover's symbol, a nobleman's crest, a merchant's private mark. He does not read them. That would be unthinkable, but he knows. And the ledgers, when preserved, become a kind of archaeology of communication. A map of who spoke to whom and how often and from what corner of the world. And so the post grows not through speed or volume or fame, but through consistency. The slow drip of messages that never stop flowing. From rider to station, from ledger to ledger, from candlelight to candlelight. In the quiet world of wax-sealed letters and galloping hooves, there are some messages that ride faster than others. Messages not bound for merchants or scholars, but for kings and queens, dukes and ministers. These belong to the royal post. While ordinary letters shuffle through relay stations and wait their turn, royal correspondence rides first. The royal posts are elite. Their couriers wear distinctive badges and carry sealed credentials. Their horses are well-bred and kept ready at all times. When a message from the king must move, it does not wait. These royal couriers, sometimes called extraordinary messengers, are given priority at all relay stations. No toll is charged. No horse is denied. And when they ride into a village, heads turn. They are servants of the sovereign, and their pouches may carry declarations of war, alliances, or royal pardons. But not all their duties are grand. Sometimes they carry letters of courtly love. Sometimes records of grain shipments. Sometimes apologies between cousins who also happen to be monarchs. Even kings have petty arguments, after all. In some regions, special royal roads are marked, routes cleared, maintained, and patrolled for the exclusive use of royal messengers and approved postal riders. The Spanish monarchy, for instance, oversees a vast system stretching from Madrid through the Low Countries, using trusted families, like Thurn and taxis, to ensure its letters arrive intact. In France, Louis XIII's officials closely guard the royal mail, using postal inspectors to prevent delays and tampering. And in England, by century's end, the idea of a state-run postal service will grow from this royal system, evolving into what the public may one day use. But for now, in the 1600s, it is the court and the crown that hold the key to postal power. With power comes caution. Not all royal letters are what they seem. Some carry coded instructions. Others are written in invisible ink. A few are double-sealed, one seal to impress the courier, another to be broken only in private chambers. Kings, you see, do not always trust their own messengers, and neither do their enemies. Spies often work within postal stations. Intercepted letters are steamed open over hidden kettles, read by shadowy officials, and then resealed with care. A message may pass through 10 hands before reaching its true reader. So every courier, every postmaster, every innkeeper becomes part of a delicate game, a web of loyalty, suspicion, and silence. Yet for all its intrigue, the royal post retains something ritualistic. A letter from the monarch is not merely information. It is authority made visible, carried in paper and wax, through wind and rain, into halls where decisions will be made, and history quietly nudged. The courier may be wet and weary, the roads may be broken, but the king's letter must arrive, even if no one hears the hoofbeats, even if the message is never read aloud. The post must move. Not every letter finds its reader. Even in a system governed by schedules, ledgers, and dedicated couriers, some messages are never opened. They sit, untouched, behind the desk of a postmaster, or tucked inside a wooden drawer marked retained. Some were misaddressed, others arrived too late, and some were simply forgotten. In 17th century Europe, an unclaimed letter might remain at a local post house for weeks or months. Postmasters were instructed to hold them carefully, shield them from damp, and await further instruction. Sometimes a servant would arrive to claim it. Sometimes a second letter would follow asking after the first. But often the paper curled with age. The wax cracked, and the letter joined a growing pile of orphaned correspondence, never read. These forgotten letters reveal a hidden part of the postal world, not the grandeur of royal routes, but the quiet truth of human imperfection. A missed appointment, a lost friend, a message delayed by snow, or war, or illness, and yet they are still kept. What is to be done with a letter that no one claims? The postmaster may write a small note beside the original entry in his ledger. Unclaimed as of January 2nd. Resent to Venice, February 12th. Unknown recipient. Returned to sender. But if no return address exists, the letter remains, its secret sealed, its purpose suspended. Some postmasters in later decades would archive these messages. Others might sell the paper to bookbinders or reuse the parchment. But many simply stored them, hundreds at a time, in boxes or cupboards, until the ink faded and the names were no longer known. When a letter is delivered, it is almost never dramatic. The courier arrives. A door opens. A hand accepts the folded message. Coin may be exchanged. A nod, thank you, and the door closes. Some letters are read immediately. Others are tucked into desks for later. A few are kept forever in chests beside family relics. More often, they are burned after reading. There is no expectation that they will survive, but for a moment, brief as the flicker of a candle, that letter completed its journey. A sender, a message, a recipient, and in that fragile line drawn across miles of land and ink and weather, the purpose of the post is fulfilled. Not loudly, not perfectly, but truly. As dawn breaks over the tiled rooftops and misty fields of old Europe, the riders slow. The post stations quiet. The ledgers close. And the wax seals, once warm from the fire, cool and harden into memory. We have traveled far, you and I, across dusty roads and candlelit rooms, through the patient silence of letters in transit. Now, as our story finds its rest, we ask, what remains? What did this vast, careful, imperfect system leave behind? In many ways, the slow, steady machinery of the 17th century post became the spine of the modern world. From these early networks of couriers and postmasters grew the great national postal services of the centuries to come: La Poste in France, Royal Mail in England, Correos in Spain. Systems that eventually promised daily delivery, public accessibility, and one day the simple miracle of the home mailbox. The work of Thurn and taxis, once a private empire, would evolve into a regulated, state-managed operation. Their stations, riders, and maps laid the groundwork for international postal treaties, allowing nations to coordinate mail across borders, no longer as rivals, but as partners. What began as a privilege became a right. A tool for the few became a service for the many. And yet, beyond the systems and the institutions, the post was always something simpler. It was a way for one person to reach another. A soldier writing to a sister, a widow writing to her son, a merchant confirming a shipment, a lover saying nothing and everything at once. Each letter was a thread, fine, fragile, connecting one human soul to another across distance and time. Even now, when messages fly through glass screens in less than a second, the spirit of the old post remains. We still pause before sending, still choose our words, still wait for replies, and some of us, quietly, secretly, still love receiving real letters, folded, tangible, sealed. As we close this chapter, let us return just for a moment to that candlelit station. The horses are asleep in the stable. The postmaster nods at his desk. The courier's boots rest beside the hearth, drying from the rain. And on the table, a bundle of letters waits to be sorted. Ink still damp, wax still soft. They are not urgent, they are not loud, but they are waiting. And that waiting, like the soft rhythm of hooves on a distant road, is enough. You followed a slow letter through a slow world, where nothing rushed and everything mattered. Let your thoughts drift now, as the couriers once did, between one warm inn and the next. Let the hoofbeats fade. Let the wax cool. Let the story seal itself closed, not with a bang, but with a sigh. Good night, traveler. May your dreams arrive safely.